Hawkins, be quiet! You ruined it, Caleb.
Imagine this. It's 1825 in Tasmania, a wild, brutal island just off the coast of Australia. The British Empire runs the place like their personal prison yard. Convicts are treated like dirt, women are used and discarded, and the native people hunted like animals. In the middle of all this, there's Claire, a young Irish convict who just wants her freedom. But when a British officer takes everything from her, including her husband and her baby, she snaps. And what follows is one of the darkest revenge stories you'll ever see on screen. Even though Claire has a husband and a newborn baby, she's trapped in Hawkins' grip. Singing for him, suffering for him, her so-called sentence never really ends. Claire, Irish convict. By rights, she should have been free by now. But her commanding officer, Lieutenant Hawkins, had other plans. To him, Claire wasn't a person. She was property forced labor by day and worse by night. Inside Hawkins' office, the air feels heavy, suffocating. Hawkins leans closer. To him, Claire's body isn't hers anymore. It's part of his authority, his possession. Behind closed doors, his abuse of power turns personal, cruel, and deeply violating. At home, she has Aiden, her loyal husband, and their little baby, the one fragile piece of hope they still hold on to. The moment Aiden sees her, he knows something is terribly wrong. Claire's eyes tell a story of pain she cannot speak, but silence can cut deeper than words. Aiden feels a wall rising between them, not built by lack of love, but forced upon them by Hawkins' cruelty. Aiden can't take it anymore. Watching Claire crumble under Hawkins' abuse fuels a rage he can no longer contain. With desperate courage, he confronts Hawkins, demanding justice. But in front of a British officer, Aiden's voice is meaningless. Hawkins mocks his defiance, treating him as nothing more than a worthless prisoner's plea. Yet in Aiden's eyes, there's a warning: push him any further, and he'll fight back, even if it costs his life. Hawkins' abuse can no longer be ignored. His superior finally snaps and delivers a verdict. Hawkins is banished from his post, but there's a catch. If he wants to keep his rank, he has to reach the city within 5 days. That night, the tension that had been simmering finally exploded. Claire only wanted a quiet life with Aiden and their baby. But to Hawkins, his hunger for power mattered more than any human life. Aiden tried to protect his family, but his courage ended in tragedy. With cold intent, he forced Claire into a nightmare right there, in front of her husband. Aiden screamed, restrained and powerless, forced to watch as Hawkins stripped away not just Claire's dignity, but their very humanity. Even Claire's innocent baby was silenced, a cruelty beyond comprehension. And still, 2 of Hawkins' soldiers took turns degrading her. That night was meant to be her end, but for reasons unknown, they left her alive, shattered, broken. The next morning, her wounds still fresh carried her lifeless baby in her arms. She walked to the magistrate's home. She begged for justice. The magistrate shook his head and said flatly, "Hawkins has left. He must reach the city within 5 days." Claire went to the home of a man Aiden's close friend. She begging for a proper burial. "I can't stay here. I'm going after Hawkins." But the man stopped her immediately. "I know someone who can help you." He led to introduce to Billy, an Aboriginal tracker who knew the wilderness better than anyone else. "I'll pay you. I don't care how much. I just need you to show me the way." Coldly, he replied, "Fine, I'll show you the way. But I'm not your servant, and I won't care if you die along the road." Billy knew exactly how white people treated his kind. Their first steps through the forest were awkward. Then, a white man stood there, their eyes immediately locking onto Billy, staring at him as if he were an animal, not a man. 2 bodies dangled lifelessly from the branches. Claire whispered, "Why would they?" "Because to them, our lives aren't worth more than an animal's. And when an animal gets in the way, you hang it." For the first time, Claire began to understand her hatred toward Hawkins was personal. But Billy's hatred was for an entire world that had stripped his people of their dignity. The morning came with rain. Billy, eyes scanning the ground, the trees, the broken branches. To Claire, it looked like meaningless dirt and leaves. But to Billy, it was a map clear as ink on paper. Hawkins and his men marched ahead. Then, a young Aboriginal woman appeared with a small child. "She'll keep us entertained," one of the soldiers sneered. Hawkins and his men prepared to use her as nothing more than their prey. "To cut the distance, we have to cross the river, but we wait until the water runs shallow," Billy said. But Claire's face was hard, her voice sharp with desperation. "I can't wait. I have to keep moving." The current struck instantly, pulling at her legs, dragging her downstream. Billy quickly threw a long tree branch toward Claire. With all his strength, he pulled the branch back, dragging her safely to the riverbank. For the first time, Claire looked at him not with contempt, but with something closer to gratitude, though no words were spoken. After the river incident, Claire and Billy, with no other choice, slipped into a small house. Holding their breath, they stole bread and a bit of salted meat, not out of desire, but because survival demanded it. That night, a small campfire was their only light in the forest. Pride and suspicion still hung over them, but beneath the bickering, something began to shift, an unspoken understanding. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Hawkins spent the night in his own twisted form of entertainment. An Aboriginal woman was forced to keep him company under the dim glow of the fire. Even an old Aboriginal man, forced to serve as their guide, couldn't save the woman from Hawkins' grasp. And the child beside him was seen as nothing more than a servant kept only because he was clever. The next morning, Hawkins' party was struck by a counterattack. Spears flew through the air. Hawkins' men scattered in chaos. But Hawkins, before fleeing, he raised his rifle and pulled the trigger. Only then did Hawkins run, leaving behind nothing but blood and a deeper tragedy. In the same time, Billy finally picked up fresh tracks. Hawkins' men were close. Claire's rage boiled over as she pushed forward with burning determination. Suddenly, she came face to face with one of Hawkins' soldiers, the very man who had murdered her baby. Consumed by fury, Claire pulled the trigger, but it wasn't enough. Driven by vengeance, she plunged her knife into him again and again, as if forcing him to taste the same agony he once inflicted. Billy followed the tracks to a grim scene, signs of struggle and the brutal fate of the Aboriginal woman. From that moment, he knew a confrontation with Hawkins was no longer far off. It was inevitable. But what Hawkins didn't realize was that the old Aboriginal guide was leading them astray. Instead of taking them toward the settlement, he led the group higher, deeper into the mountains. He did it with purpose, driven by rage and sorrow after seeing Hawkins murder and torment his people. After the gunfire, Billy arrived at a place that stopped him in his tracks. Lying before him was the body of the old Aboriginal man, his own uncle. From that moment on, vengeance burned inside him. He was no longer just guiding Claire. Now, he had his own reason to see Hawkins fall. And finally, the inevitable confrontation came. Claire and Billy found Hawkins standing before them. With trembling hands, Claire raised her rifle, aiming at the man who had stolen everything from her. But in that crucial moment, her courage froze. She stood paralyzed, unable to pull the trigger. Hawkins, ruthless as ever, fired first. Claire staggered and fled, with Billy rushing close behind her. At that crucial moment, Billy lunged at Hawkins and his men, trying to strike at close range, but the attack failed. Billy wasn't killed on the spot. He was forced into the role of their new guide. Claire hiding behind tree. Desperate to survive, Billy eventually led Hawkins and his men back to the main road. Once there, the young boy who had always tagged along was ordered to kill Billy, but his doubt.
Give him his reward!
In that hesitation, Billy seized the chance and escaped. Furious, Hawkins turned his wrath on the boy himself, slaughtering him without mercy. Meanwhile, Claire, lost deep in the woods, was on the brink of despair. Then, out of nowhere, a nightingale appeared before her, fluttering as if guiding the way. Trusting the small bird, she followed until the forest opened to the main road. There, she managed to stop a passing carriage, finally securing a ride into town, a fragile chance to survive, and perhaps to finish what she had started. But in the most unexpected twist, on her way back to town, Claire suddenly crossed paths with Billy, still alive. Without a word, they chose to continue together. Soon, they stumbled upon a lone house in the wilderness. Desperation drove them to repeat what they had done before, stealing food, clothes, and even weapons from the home. On their way to town, Claire and Billy came across an elderly couple. Out of desperation, they pointed their weapons, ready for the worst. But what followed was unexpected. Instead of fear or hostility, the old couple welcomed them into their home. For the first time in a long while, Claire and Billy felt kindness. The wife served them a warm meal, while the husband even offered Billy a seat at the dining table, and also a warm bed. In the next day, after a long journey filled with pain and rage, Claire and Billy finally arrived in town. In the heart of the bustling town, Claire finally saw him, the man who had haunted her every waking moment. Hawkins stood tall in his uniform, as if his sins had never stained him. But in front of so many eyes, he couldn't pull the trigger. He spat out one last threat and walked away. But Claire wasn't done. She followed Hawkins, confronting him right in front of his fellow officers. She laid bare his crimes: the rape, the murder, the cruelty he carried out without remorse. In the company of his peers, Hawkins faltered. He tried to deny it, tried to silence her with a glare, but the weight of her truth crushed him. For the first time, shame clung to him, not her. That night, the forest was cloaked in darkness and mist. Billy was no longer just a guide. He had become what he truly was, an Aboriginal warrior, a son of the land. He stalked Hawkins and his men. Like a phantom, he moved through the night. Mercy had no place here. One by one, they fell. Silent, brutal, struck down by Billy's vengeance, swift as the spirits of his people. That night, the blood spilled was not just vengeance for Claire. It was justice for his people. At dawn, the horizon glowed. Claire walked beside Billy. Their steps were heavy, burdened by all the scars and blood of the night before. Both understood. Their journey together ended here. Billy belonged to the land, while Claire had a life she needed to rebuild.